everyone. I'm Christine Tulley, President and Executive Writing Coach at Defend, Publish, and Lead. Welcome to episode 275, Do One Thing Today. It's April of 2026, and April is always the month that I think about in the academic year that I hate the most for lots of reasons. It's really busy. It's very overwhelming. There's a lot of grading to do, a lot of end of academic year wrap up, graduation ceremonies, some night events. Also thinking about things that I need to do to prepare for the summer, like doing some course prep for summer classes or registering one of my children for a summer activity. And for many academics, this is the time of year that things where, we kind of get to a point where writing falls by the wayside, where we're not totally sure of all the obligations we have, but we're just really scrambling to get it all done. And so last week, what we looked at was making a quick catch-up list of things that you actually do need to catch up on before the end of the semester. So what are things that you owe people? What are things that you're going to get in big trouble for if you don't do? And today, what I thought about was something that was inspired by seeing a pile of empty Easter eggs on the floor of my office. So I work normally in my office at work, but today I was working from home for a lot of reasons, but I decided to do a work from home day because I just kept coming across room after room, something that was just undone and just sitting there. And so it adds to a lot of mental and visual clutter that's also swirling around in addition to, oh, I have to make sure that that one student turned in that assignment from 2 weeks ago, and that other person emailed me and they want to do a conference proposal, and that deadline is coming up in a week. I have a book deadline due April 20th. I need to make sure that my students that are graduating have met the graduation requirements. So it's a giant list, and the visual clutter is not helping. And so what we did last week was really look at sort of all the things just to get a grip on how bad you are, how bad your situation is, not how bad you are, but how bad your situation is, like how far behind you are. What are some things that can be put off, for another week or two while you tackle the things that are most important. But today I was really inspired by thinking, through a book that I had read a long time ago. I think it was called Organizing for the Rest of Us. I'll put a link to it. But I was very inspired by just the magic of just doing one thing, just so you feel like you're doing something. And so I really like this. And today's episode is not going to necessarily be about like home type things, but I do want to talk about three specific examples and then tie this to academic work. So if you're on YouTube, you can see some pictures of the messes in my house. It's very exciting. So the first picture, if you're audio only, is all the Easter eggs. I don't know, there's probably 30 of them. They're half empty. I get different Easter eggs, or I've gotten different Easter eggs for my children for Easter baskets. We do celebrate Easter, and I just reuse them every year. So there's some Easter grass. There's a bunch of empty eggs. One year we had ones that were shaped like Legos, which was kind of cool. And there's some that were camouflage, and there were some that were shaped like little animals. So it's always fun every year to kind of break out the old eggs and use them again. So fun, but not fun. My children, once they emptied the eggs and got the goodies out of them, they know to put them all back in one spot, which they did for me, but it's up to me to put it away to store them again for the year. So did I do that? No. Are they still sitting on the floor? Yes. And I see there's also some Easter grass and stuff mixed in. So one visual clutter piece I'm encountering every day as I wander through my house is a bunch of Easter eggs. Easter was less than a week ago, so I'm not real riled up about it. This is not the same thing as having your Christmas tree up in July or any of those kinds of things if you're somebody that's very, seasonally aware. But it is kind of sticking with me that, this would just take me a couple minutes. If I literally threw them all in the bag and threw them in the closet, I'd be done with this project in 10 seconds. So yes, so that's one thing I have not done, but it's there. And I'll bring it back around to academic stuff in a second here, but I want to give you some different examples. Another thing is a bag, which you can't even tell it's a bag from the picture, but there is a duffel bag with a bunch of stuff sticking out of it, a brown file folder, and a bunch of packing material. This is a bag that I take with me when I exhibit for Defend, Publish, and Lead at academic conferences. And when I, have a table set up, people can find out about our writing coaching services. So if you're just encountering us for productivity tips, we do offer individual faculty and graduate student writing coaching, including dissertation, book support, and all that. But also, we do faculty workshops for universities. And so, what I was doing at this particular conference was talking about a lot of the university workshops that someone can organize. It can be a department, it can be a faculty developer. Workshops can be organized by like a series. So, what that meant practically was I had a whole bunch of flyers with QR codes. So, all that stuff was in this bag. And why it looks the way it does, I never put it away when I came back from that conference because I was in a very heavy travel season in March. So I needed it a couple of different times. But the last time I opened up the bag because I needed to grab out something like a book or something that I had put in there just because I needed a space to cram it. And then I just left the bag. So normally, once I'm done with conference season and exhibiting, I will just put all that stuff away. And that typically is in the spring, or I won't need it till the fall again. But I never did it. So it's still sitting there. And then lastly, the good old metaphor of the suitcase. So you can't even tell that one of these is a suitcase. I actually have two suitcases that are not emptied now. I have one smaller one from when I did a talk at a university like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then another suitcase from spring break. Both of them not emptied, big piles of stuff all over the floor around them. They're sitting in our spare room at the moment, so they're not, they're not necessarily like causing anybody day-to-day struggles. But again, how long would this take me to clean up? Maybe 15 minutes. I might time it and throw it out in LinkedIn how long it took me to take care of each of these issues. But why I'm pointing these out is that they're, for one, they're not helping. So when I see them, I'm like, oh, I should really get to that. But then I'm like, oh, but you have a book deadline. You really need to finish that. That's the most important thing. Or what about those 5 students that are still waiting you to get comments on the paper? And so, one of the things I think is tough, and this is why this episode is one that I think is really appropriate for this time of year, is that it's very tough for us to make a choice what to do because everything seems really important. So, yes, I often will advise people, if you just got to let all the housework and whatever go, if you can go another week without getting that oil change in your car or whatever the thing is, yeah, sometimes you're just going to do that because the academic season is so crazy. But there is some benefit in just allowing your brain to have a little bit of a mental, like, okay, I did tackle one thing today. Because the other frustrating thing about working in April, I think, is that some things are ongoing. So, for example, you might catch up on all your grading, but then you're still about to get some projects in a week and you'll have to grade those. So you can't really check grading off the list. You can't yet log your final grades. For scholarly projects, one of the things that, at least in my areas that I'm interested in working in, it's kind of frustrating, but a lot of the calls for proposals for fall or early spring conferences, they're out now. So I can't say, oh, I just don't care about conference season until I'll worry about that in June because June is too late. The conference deadlines will have passed to submit something. So the other frustrating thing about that is I can't write a conference proposal in 30 minutes. Some people can, I can't. I mean, I could do it in a morning or in an afternoon. So I know that I'm probably going to need, 2 hours, maybe 3. But it's not kind of like the quick wins that I might get from just throwing the Easter eggs in the bag and throwing them up on the shelf. So one of the things that I'm trying to do to get through April is just to say, is there one little like visual thing that's bugging me that I can just take care of? So the Easter eggs, if that's the thing I'm going to do today, hopefully it is, I'll report in a post like what kind of, how long these times actually took me to do these, but I'm going to do them, but they're not just these kind of visual clutter things. There's other things. For example, in my email, I get an email every week from some list proc that I'm on that I don't want to be on anymore. And I just need to unsubscribe. Like that's the one thing I could do that day. So one of the things I'm doing for myself in April, and I encourage you to do this yourself, is to think about what is something that I could just knock out every day that's relatively fast, something you can do 15, 20 minutes that will just make life a little bit easier going forward. So for me, it's going to be getting this stuff off of my floor. I'm only going to do one of them. So I might just do one suitcase a day, put up a couple, put the Easter eggs away, whatever the thing is. Another thing that you can think of as we close this episode is what's something you could do today that's going to help you tomorrow that is quick. So As part of our podcast sponsorship with Textbook and Academic Authors Association, I know all of you hear me talk about them all the time because I love them so much. But I mentioned a couple episodes ago that they are doing a summer institute, which is really cool. It's basically like going to writing school to improve your academic writing in a fun way in these learning labs. But registration's still open. There's still some seats left. And if you're interested in doing it, I'll put a link in the show notes. But one of the great things I want to talk about this week is that we do have a keynote on AI, and this one is going to be by Brian Alexander. He does a lot of work in this area, titled How the AI Revolution is Impacting the Future of Textbook and Academic Publishing. So registration for that alone, totally worth it. This will be really great to attend to figure out, where AI is going to take us in the future. But in addition to getting that keynote, you can also get some special sessions for textbook authors. There's ones about negotiating a publishing contract. I don't know about you. I've never figured out, how to necessarily do that. And then different labs for veteran authors for textbooks and for scholarly articles and so on. And actually, the Institute presenters will be hosted on our podcast. We'll do a couple of interviews with them just about their work, and a little bit about the Institute as well. So I'll also be doing one about finding your scholarly voice again. If you're a veteran academic or mid-career and you're just looking to have something a little bit new. And then also another person that would be really great is Pat Goodson. She has done a ton of books about academic writing, and I love them. We've talked about many of these on our podcast before. We've talked about the 90 Days, 90 Ways book a lot because that one basically gives you a little piece of writing advice every single day that you can look at, and it's fabulous. So I encourage you to check out the Institute. I'll put a link in the show notes, and happy writing this week.